DCU, but just a little update on it that I think that James Gunn's DCU has already failed. I think that this is a non-starter and that WB still will not have the MCU that they always wanted to have.
Creature Commandos has established that Batman does exist in the DC universe, so what's Batman up to?
Being a shitty detective, I guess, because it's crazy too. It'd be like, oh, Lex Luthor might have been kidnapping people. It's like Lex Luthor, the guy who can create immortal Hulk men and machine women, who's also trying to get... I don't even know where to begin with describing this man in this universe, you know what I mean? Oh my god. These characters deserve so much better than this.
Fucking street by 100 white people. What the fuck are you even talking about?
You can probably, it's easier to construct an argument that James Gunn is racist, because like, James Gunn always has this problem with like, the curse of the unintended narrative, because he doesn't really think through what he writes or what he puts on screen. So in Superman, for example, like the thematic message in Superman is essentially that corporations can solve the Middle East conflict. Like you can send Halliburton away to solve Israel-Palestine. That's kind of what the movie inadvertently tells you. And in this one, the happiest, most well-adjusted utopian universe there is, everything you see in it is peaceful and everyone gets on, is the world where the Nazis won. And there's only a single line in that which basically says, oh yeah, all the minorities are in camp somewhere. But everything it shows you is happy and lovely and well-adjusted and peaceful.
I think that DC as a brand, in terms of its movies and TV right now, is in a worse spot than it was before James Gunn came on. I feel that the guy just writes this stuff for Twitter and for Blue Sky and for Threads, because that's where he's on all the time. He's doing it so we can get a million retweets from people who are brain dead and affirm him. Yeah, this is eerily close to how it is living in America today. Just a brilliant insight, James Gunn. But the problem isn't just that his political commentary is brain dead and that he doesn't know how to write. The problem is who he is implicating as who he thinks the Nazis are in real life. So I'm going to say that means that I think the only way he's getting away with this is that barely anyone is watching this show.
You said it's an immigrant story. It's a political movie. MAGA today is going nuts. What do you have to say to MAGA?
I don't have anything. I think this movie's for everybody. I don't have anything to say to anybody. Like I'm not here to judge people, you know. I think this is a movie about kindness, and I think that's something everyone can relate to.
The new episode of Peacemaker came out, and everyone's talking about it. I had to put my drama slop hiatus to an end to say my piece. Expect some different topics from here on out. Go ahead and subscribe if you like superhero movies, and more stuff is in the works. Anyway, my thoughts on the episode. It has some of the highest valleys and lowest lows, in my opinion, in terms of James Gunn's superhero work. The acting and character work from John Cena, and in a more comedic sense from the two vigilantes, was amazing to see in this episode. However, the episode also contains some very underwritten scenes involving Leota, Peacemaker's best friend, and a character that I have enjoyed the presence of in the season up to this point. And I think they were definitively some of the most undercooked scenes I've ever seen in a James Gunn production. She's able to flee from an entire town full of people, which even if you find an explanation, like if you can see that it's possible that all of these Earth X people were just passive suburbanites that live in a utopian Nazi society, and therefore they have no reason to stay in elite physical shape. Sure, even if you go with that, she makes the stupid decision of jumping into an in-ground pool as an escape route. Who in their right mind would jump to an in-ground pool to run from any group of people? That's how you get trapped. And then this exact method of trapping these people is how Judo Master gets their most amount of kills with a telephone wire in a pool that they've ever done. And then later, her and Judo Master bond over Scrabble, which is this universe's renamed version of Scrabble, and they have this really clunky dialogue relaying their feelings about the Earth X reality, which at least it does give us some actual character traits about Judo Master, given that he's, gay and Buddhist. But Leota says an incredibly stupid quote here that I think you actually can pull some relevance from, and it could be meaningful, but it comes off as incredibly tone-deaf in terms of its presentation. I will concede that at the very least. However, this episode, the character of Auggie Smith, and the morals that he carried, has everyone on Twitter arguing about whether or not this show is some type of violent political propaganda or a talking point that conservatives can use to say that they're definitive victims in modern culture. If you're someone that likes Peacemaker as a TV show and you wanted to see what the logical follow-up to the Superman movie was, and you want to engage with any sort of discussions about it online, now people are trying to engage it with you in left versus right talking points as if it isn't fictionalized versions of literal World War II Nazis. No, there is no possible interpretation of this episode of Peacemaker outside of, oh my god, woke James Gunn finally defeated centrist CEO James Gunn. Or the other interpretation from the right-wingers of, man, James Gunn just loves killing white people. It seems like no other interpretation other than those two are even being considered in this fictional television episode, mind you. So, as both sides of the political spectrum attempt to use an episode of television as either a political talking point or a thorn of martyrdom, let's look into some of these terrible takes and see why James Gunn's works are a bit more nuanced than I would say people are willing to give him credit for.
James has said that Superman is an immigrant story, that it is political. MAGA today was getting a little upset that he called Superman an immigrant. I wanted to get your reaction.
Somebody needs a hug. It's just a movie, guys. It's just a movie.
James Gunn is a talented director.
Is he though?
And this used to be a popular opinion. However, the second that he took over DC Studios and made some controversial creative decisions, such as rebooting the DCEU, only keeping works that he made canon, and firing people such as Henry Cavill, it began to draw a lot more ire from people on the internet. People that previously defended James Gunn as the based king that beat cancellation and made Disney come crawling back was now the evil villain that took away their Snyderverse. The evil villain that took away their Man of Steel 2. And I'm not gonna lie, Henry Cavill, he's a good actor. Come on, like the whole thing with him and Superman, that was a 10-year saga of failure across multiple films. It would be too complicated to keep him around still, and the Snyderverse was a complete cinematic failure. I think one of James Gunn's positive traits, and one of the reasons that they even brought him in to lead DC Studios in the first place, is his intent to create 4-quadrant films. This being films that effectively can appeal to both young and old men and women. He relates his stories to ideas, relationships, and themes that are present in cultures all over the world. His characters are relatable without being the same people, and even characters that have incredibly similar backgrounds end up having entirely different personalities. The idea that Superman or Peacemaker or anything else that James Gunn or DC creates is intentionally trying to appeal only to a certain ideology, race, or anything else, I find to be ridiculous, as it not only goes against what James Gunn himself has to say about these topics.
You said it's an immigrant story. It's a political movie. MAGA today is going nuts. What do you have to say to MAGA?
I don't have anything. I think this movie's for everybody. I don't have anything to say to anybody. Like I'm not here to judge people, you know.
But also fundamentally undermines the success of their franchise. The tentpole franchises owned by Disney all started to fall apart when the stories became nothing more than political talking pieces or the writer attempting to sort out their own trauma. Warner Brothers has to be aware of this. And it seems like they are trying to create something that has a 4-quadrant appeal with all the masses. Peacemaker is already a streaming show for adults. I would imagine that Warner Brothers and DC Studios wouldn't want to alienate half of the voter base of the country, as they imagine that most people in this country aren't allied with the Nazis from World War II. James Gunn's works simply just have more nuance than those politically affected in the audience want to believe, and many of the themes that he does tread upon are evocative of real-life conflicts that are relatable to those that are politically affected. Therefore, positively or negatively, it is easy to ascertain a political interpretation of James Gunn's works that either goes against your political narrative and makes you a martyr, or goes with your political narrative and makes James Gunn look incredibly based. When in actuality, I think the guy just wants to make movies. Just like in the early 2000s, he just wanted to make, I don't know, sleazy Xbox 360 games.
People know who you are already, but just in case.
Oh, some people don't know who I am. I'm James Gunn, and I am the writer of the game Lollipop Chainsaw, and I've done a bunch of other stuff, too.
Like Slither, and I believe a bunch of other...
Did a movie called Slither that I wrote and directed. Wrote and directed a movie called Super. I had a web series called PG Porn, which a lot of people know. I wrote Dawn of the Dead.
As soon as the Superman movie came out, everyone tried to find an angle to politicize it. While that movie and Peacemaker, and especially in our Creature Commandos, are not immune to criticism and, especially for the political themes, it is frustrating to see how many criticisms of these works are only legitimate if you intentionally forget context, later information given in these films, or you extrapolate a meta-context revolving around your political ideology. The war that happens in the Superman film is a fictional war between two fictional countries, which we later find out within that very film was an established part of Lex Luthor's plan that was not a genuine conflict. The war between Baravia and Jarhanpur being a fictional war that was propped up by Lex Luthor grounds this story firmly within the fiction and creates a distance from the real-life conflicts that are happening. Despite whatever closeness you may feel either with the fiction or with these real-life conflicts that are happening, there is still a separation between the two of them in reality. And the only way that you can make a connection between the two of them is by creating a bad faith interpretation via the meta. Therefore, you need to completely forget that this is fiction and assume that what you're seeing is basically National Geographic and that you are being informed of an actual moral stance to be taken, such as the Little Platoon in the intro, saying that the Superman film, the central message is dedicated to solving Israel versus Palestine via Western companies.
He writes or what he puts on screen. So in Superman, for example, like the thematic message in Superman is essentially that corporations can solve the Middle East conflict. Like you can send Halliburton away to solve Israel-Palestine. That's kind of what the movie inadvertently tells you. And in this one...
But now we are seeing the same politicization trend with the show Peacemaker. And while I have to concede that the show does make the deliberate creative decision of using the Nazi-infested Earth-X from the comics, a storyline in which World War II ended very, very differently from how it ended in real life, it is doing so in service of these characters and showing them in a situation that is entirely different than the way that we are now, while also perhaps drawing some similarities in some ways that people may find to be uncomfortable. For every character that we see an Earth-X version of, they are a fitting subversion of who they typically are that allows the story to progress forward in an entertaining way that also aids the main character's arcs. For example, Christopher Smith in our universe was raised by a violent neo-Nazi father who accidentally made him kill his own brother, and blames Chris to this day for it. Earth 1, Christopher Smith is an incredibly traumatized man who develops a sense of justice and a moral code while trying to escape his father's shadow, and tries to do what is right for the country that he loves, to the point where he's willing to take a bullet for it. When it is revealed to him that the status quo of the country he lives in, and soon the entire world, will become a subversive alien body stealing scheme, Peacemaker is willing to reject the status quo and fight the hard fight even if it is the hard thing to do. It represents somebody that is active in their morals and is willing to pursue something even if it is hard. Somebody that is trying to overcome their innermost flaws even when the world constantly keeps reminding them of them. Meanwhile, on Earth X, Peacemaker is a self-destructive, alcoholic, pill-popping womanizer who was seemingly washed away with the status quo of Nazi ideology because it was an easy path for him to get pussy and fame. The person that in our universe that we normally know to be principled, moral, and willing to go the path of most resistance for the sake of peace has been eaten alive by his self-imposed hardships that normally would not be the case in a world where Peacemaker wasn't given everything. The way that James Gunn is using Earth X is not just for shock value. He's not just trying to say, let's go to a world where there's no consequences for killing people because they're Nazis. If he truly wanted to do that, it would have just been a zombie story like every other TV show whenever they want to kill humans for no point. James Gunn put in the effort to show us that there are normal human beings here with families. There are happy children. Yes, ultimately these families do all profit from a system of evil, but a child cannot be judged for the system of governance they live under. And if you're critical of this show and in the comments you're already starting to justify the murder of children, please self-reflect. This is a superhero TV show. And I find this to be so disappointing that people have this only the surface level political assertion that, oh, the Nazis in the show must be MAGA conservatives because I said so. Or, wow, James Gunn must be saying that political violence against conservatives is based. No. There is a reading of this show that is not rooted in real-life current-day politics that couldn't have been predicted when it was written months, if not years ago. The story of Earth X Auggie Smith shows us the nuance in this universe, and that it's not just as simple as kill all the Nazis. Auggie is a tale of both complacency and resistance in a system of evil. Feeling guilt for the things that you can't change, but taking stride to change the things that you can. Auggie Smith likely couldn't have changed the entire world. Even with all of his riches, even if he really, really wanted to, and he had the backbone. You can't expect any one rich person to fix every problem in the world. Even if they could possibly lobby every politician, there's going to be somebody that has more money, or there's going to be somebody that just simply says no because of their own moral convictions. And then if you take into the grander context that this is a DC universe that likely has its own Nazi version of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, etc., I am not going to genuinely believe that Auggie Smith is going to solo the verse so that way he can defeat the Nazis, despite the fact that that would be the coolest what if episode ever. We are all human. And in an industrialized world, we are all to some extent complacent in someone else's misery. Auggie was as reasonable as he could have been and still died. Even if he did give all of his resources to the Sons of Liberty, he probably would have just been executed, all of his resources stolen by the Nazi government, and then average normal dudes that would have just had access to hover tech, lasers, etc. Not to mention the Nazi government of this world seemingly doesn't have their own version of the quantum unfolding chamber yet, meaning that if Auggie had given himself up and tried to fight for the Sons of Liberty, ultimately that would have ended up in their hands as well, and then we would have had a multiversal Nazi incident. So from an internal perspective, it is truly hard for me to say that Auggie made bad calls or bad decisions. It's a difficult choice. It's a difficult universe. And if you were to judge someone this harshly in real life and say that they are complicit in Nazi ideology, you could probably justify your own murder, because I bet the computer screen that you're watching this on, or the phone that you're watching this on, is powered by a lithium-ion battery that was mined by a child in some foreign country. If you can justify Auggie Smith being killed, you can probably justify Superman or Batman being killed, because they didn't use all of their power or their money to fix all of the world's problems either yet. Too long didn't read. If there was a way to fix the Earth X, it probably would have been a pincer effort between the freedom fighters via the Sons of Liberty, as well as more centrist people within the system of the world that would have changed people's minds slowly, such as Auggie. However, when you kill the reasonable solution, ultimately only the unreasonable one becomes possible. And now that is what we're left with in the finale, which I am very much waiting for. And I hope all of you enjoy. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to try to put out more videos like this. I've got a longer Fantastic Four First Steps review in the tank. I don't know, that movie really sucks. Yeah. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and more content's on the way. Peace out.